conversations available to the intelligence committees. The President should make full, unedited transcripts available immediately. No ifs, no ands, no buts. If the President may have put national security and our intelligence operations at risk, Congress has the right to know about it. As I believe Senator Tillis implied this morning, if the President felt comfortable sharing this information with the Russians, surely he feels comfortable sharing it with the Congress of the United States of America. I'm pleased that several of our Republican colleagues have also called on the White House to allow Congress to access transcripts of the meeting, but we need more of our Republican colleagues to speak out. This is not normal behavior. This is not how a White House should operate. Firing an FBI director who is investigating the President's campaign, disclosing classified information to a country that wishes us harm and just finished undermining the integrity of our elections. We need our Republican colleagues to join us in standing up, to put country over party, and work with Democrats to get the truth of Director Comey's firing, to protect the integrity of the investigation into Russian interference in our election, and to get to the bottom of yesterday's report. Searching for the truth is not a partisan thing to do. It is the patriotic thing to do. We need more than words from our Republican colleagues. We need action. Senator Durbin.
November 8th, 2016 is a day that will live in cyber infamy. The Russians did everything in their power to invade the government of the United States of America and to corrupt a presidential election. Those words are not mine alone. They're words that are backed up by every major intelligence agency of the United States of America. What have we done? We've initiated an investigation to find out what they did, how they did it, who was involved in it, and stop it from ever happening again. It's been one of the most serious counterintelligence investigations in this nation's history. And we have seen a litany of things occur since which are incredible. A national security advisor who was forced to resign because of contacts with the Russians that were not properly disclosed. A recusal by the Attorney General of the United States for misleading the Senate Judiciary Committee on his communications with the Russians. And just last week, the decision by the President of the United States to remove from office the man in charge of that investigation, the Director of the FBI, James Comey. And then the fumbling that occurred afterwards as they produced memos which were then disavowed and as they backtracked on the real reason for the removal of James Comey. Then to have, as a sequel to it, a meeting with the foreign minister of Russia, as well as the Russian ambassador, and for the leader of the United States of America to disclose classified top secret information to those two people in his office. To tell this story as it occurred is almost incredible for us to believe. But the question now is what we will do as the United States Senate. There have been moments in history where senators from both political parties have been called on to put country over party, to stand up together for the good of this nation, realizing the oath of office that we have taken binds us to the Constitution, to the law of the land, and to the integrity of this institution. This is one of those moments. We need to come together to have a special prosecutor, so there's no question that the person who is conducting this investigation on a criminal basis is one who is trusted. We need to make certain that we have that commitment and then bring together a person with strong bipartisan support to head up the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We need to have the transcript of what occurred in that Oval Office meeting that I've referred to. Most of all, we need to stand together, senators from different political parties, but committed to the same nation. We need for the good of this country, for the Senate to come together.
Senator Franken.
Thank you, Dick. I have been extremely concerned with the administration's ties with Russia. The acknowledgement that President Trump shared with the foreign minister and the ambassador from our our enemies, the Russians, secrets that were classified is just shocking. These were about fighting ISIS. We should understand, the president should know that Russia in Syria is not fighting ISIS. They are fighting for Assad. And this idea that we were going to join with Russia to fight ISIS, something that the president talked about during the campaign, that has never been in the cards, and only someone who's very naive would say that. We need to see the transcript of what the president and that meeting with the Russians, and by the way, there was no press in that meeting like there is here today, except for a Soviet-era style TASS, which was the only press in the room. So not only did he tell the ambassador and the foreign minister, he told the Russian media as well, and not all of you. I think it's clear that we need a special prosecutor. I'm with Dick on this, that ask my friends on the other side of the aisle to see this for what it is and to call for a special prosecutor. Thank you.
Senator Blumenthal. Thank you. I'm going to be asking Rod Rosenstein, when he appears this Thursday, whether he will commit to a special prosecutor. I voted against him. I was the only Democrat in the Judiciary Committee, the only member of the Judiciary Committee to vote against him, because he would not commit then. And if he fails to do so, I will move ahead with legislation modeled on the law that existed between 1978 and 1999 that would give the power to a three-judge panel to appoint a special prosecutor. The dangerous and reckless disclosure of classified information by the President of the United States to one of our major adversaries shows how we are approaching a constitutional precipice. It can be addressed only with a special prosecutor who has the independence and objectivity to assure that there is an aggressive and vigorous investigation that has the trust and confidence of the public. There is a common thread to all these incidents. Russian meddling in our election, possible collusion with the Russians by the Trump campaign, the firing of Comey because of the Russian thing, the warning from the Deputy Attorney General about the National Security Advisor potentially vulnerable to blackmail by the Russians, and then disclosure of highly classified information without any pre-clearance. Whatever you think about the appropriateness of the information going to the Russians, there was no effort, none, to make sure the intelligence community knew about it. The only way to be sure that we have the tapes and transcripts of the Russian meeting and the Comey conversations is to subpoena the tapes, transcripts, and other records. Prosecuting 101. If you think evidence exists, put a subpoena on it. If the party says it doesn't exist, and in fact it turns out later it does, there are criminal penalties. Without those subpoenas, there is no accountability to be sure that we determine and verify whether those tapes and transcripts exist and that we are getting all of them. There need to be subpoenas. That's my personal view. And a special prosecutor is necessary to assure that this investigation is independent and that it has the confidence of the American people.
Senator Schatz.
The very first bill passed in United States history was called the Oath Act. It mandated that members of Congress solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States And today we are called to fulfill that oath. Regardless of what party we belong to, we have an obligation to that oath. We must protect the country. And there is no doubt of the danger. The Russian foreign minister and ambassador now have information that they should not have. It's time to do something about it. And so let today be the day for Republican courage, because it wasn't yesterday, and we can't wait until tomorrow. What we need is courage and patriotism from the Republicans, and what we cannot have is mumbling in the direction of being concerned or troubled or wanting more information. What we need is true patriotism from Republicans, and that comes in actions and not words.
Senator Markey.
President Trump is tearing down our national security and intelligence protections 140 characters at a time. President Trump's decision to relay some of our most sensitive intelligence to representatives of the Russian government betrays an astounding lack of judgment. President Trump may say his foreign policy is America first, but his actions really say Russia first. By revealing code word information to Russia, President Trump may have compromised key intelligence sources, endangered the fight against ISIS, and undermined the trust of our international allies and partners, which would make them more hesitant to give us the intelligence which we need to protect our fighting men and women and our citizens here in the United States. This senseless act by the President comes just days after his firing of FBI Director Comey. Every time you think President Trump can't engage in a more blatant affront to our democracy, he tops it. These two actions alone bring us closer to a constitutional crisis. Whenever the ongoing investigations may lead us, Congress must act to restore the faith of the American people in our republic. It is incumbent upon Republicans to join Democrats in calling on Congress to immediately investigate this latest irresponsible action, as well as to support the appointment of a special prosecutor. We need the White House to make the transcript of the meeting with the Russian foreign minister and ambassador available to the House and Senate Intelligence Committees as soon as possible. We must ensure that President Trump does no additional damage to United States national security in his dealings with Russia. It is time for the Republican Party to put country over party and to remember that their country is the United States of America and not Russia.
Senator Duckworth.
We have young men and women in uniform all across the world today representing our nation. And even the most junior of those young officers and enlisted men and women know that you do not leak classified data to the Russians. Russia is not our friend. Our intelligence community has made it clear that Russia seeks to undermine our confidence in our democracy and to undermine our role as the leader of the free world and of Western-style democracy. And instead of having a commander-in-chief who would uphold the goals and the protections for this country, we have instead a Trump White House that is showing reckless instability. If verified, the president's decision to share highly classified information with a foreign adversary is deeply troubling. It is a serious threat to our national security, to the safety of our families, and to every one of our troops who are in harm's way right now. It also puts our nation's intelligence officials at a greater risk and undermines our credibility with our allies. It's even more stunning considering how often the president himself has complained about leaks. To be clear, let me say it again, Russia is not America's friend. And the President should know that highly classified intel isn't something you use to impress people. The White House needs to immediately share the transcripts with appropriate members of the Intelligence Committee. And the American people deserve to know what's really going on here, because it's becoming clearer by the day that only an independent special prosecutor can get the answers the American people need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. I am just so proud to be a member of this caucus. They're great.
Are you comforted by General McMaster's insistence that no classified information was improperly shared with you?
The answer is to get the transcripts. There are different nuances. Last night, when the General McMaster said that the President revealed no sources, well, the whole reason so many things are classified, when you know the specific fact, if you're a good intelligence agency and the Russians are, you can find those sources. So we need the transcript and a thorough analysis.
Have you directly requested the transcripts from the White House? What was your reaction? And can we get your reaction to revelations that Israel is a partner with the agency?
On the first issue, we have directly communicated with the White House. We have not gotten any reaction. On the second, I won't comment.
You praised H.R. McMaster in the past.
Yes.
Have you lost any confidence in him?
I want to read the transcripts before coming to any conclusion.
Sen Schumer, what are the Democrats prepared to do in this Will you be blocking more action in the Senate until you get the responses that you're looking for?
Look, the bottom line is we are hoping that our Republican colleagues rise to the occasion. We look forward. I was gratified when Senator McConnell met our request to bring Deputy Attorney Rosenstein before the full Senate. There'll be a lot of very, very sharp and tough questions there. And we are discussing in our caucus the best ways for further action. The one point I would make here is that there has been just one vote against all Attorney General nominees thus far. Rand Paul voted against FBI. I'm sorry. Again, there's been just one vote against all FBI director nominees in the history of the United States of America. It has always been a nomination that gets virtually unanimous support, and we are hoping that the White House moves in that direction. Well, from the reports I saw, the intelligence agencies were quite shocked when that information came about, even though in the act of doing them, the President sort of unilaterally and quickly declassified them. It doesn't seem like there was a whole lot of thought or discussion about that. And then there was a rush to the agencies to silo off information. So they didn't seem to be aware of it either, and all of that is extremely troubling. The damage that's done, even though the President has the right to declassify, remains just as strong. Last question.
There's some quarters in the Democratic Party who are talking impeachment here. Do you feel like you have to encourage that, rein that in? To what degree?
Look, every member is entitled to his or her own opinion, House and Senate. My view is we need a thorough investigation, and we need to get all the facts, and then we'll come to conclusions. Our step now is to get a thorough investigation. That involves releasing of the transcripts and the tapes. That involves questioning Attorney General Rosenstein. And most of all, that means that our Intelligence Committee has to move forward in a very strong and comprehensive way. Thank you.